You used to sleep through the night without any trouble. You used to maintain a healthy weight without obsessing over every meal. You used to walk into a room and feel like yourself, confident, energetic, present. And now, somewhere after 65, something shifted. The weight is collecting around your middle no matter what you eat or how much you move. Sleep feels like a battle you lose every single night. And there are days when you genuinely feel like you've become invisible. To your doctor, to your family, and sometimes even to yourself. What if I told you that for millions of women over 65, all three of those things, the weight, the sleep, and that deep feeling of disappearing, trace back to a single hormone imbalance that most doctors are not checking, not discussing, and not treating? I'm Dr. Steven, and this channel exists to bring you the current research on senior health, translated clearly and practically for adults over 60. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that now, because what I'm covering today is one of the most underserved topics in women's medicine. And the information in this video could change the conversation at your next appointment in a way that genuinely matters. Let's talk about what's actually happening. The hormone nobody is talking about after 65. When most people hear about hormone changes in women, they immediately think about menopause, estrogen dropping, hot flashes, the transition in the late 40s and early 50s. And yes, that is a real and significant hormonal shift. But here's what almost nobody discusses. What happens to women's hormones in the decade after menopause? Because estrogen doesn't simply drop and stabilize. It continues to fall. And as it does, it pulls other hormonal systems with it in a cascade that affects your metabolism, your sleep architecture, your stress response, and your sense of emotional identity. The specific hormone imbalance I'm referring to is the relationship between estrogen, cortisol, and thyroid function after 65. These three systems are deeply interconnected. And in women past menopause, they begin to work against each other in a way that produces exactly the cluster of symptoms you may be experiencing right now. Here is the biological picture. When estrogen drops significantly, your body loses one of its primary buffers against cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. And in younger women, adequate estrogen helps regulate how much cortisol your body produces and how long it stays elevated. Remove that buffer and cortisol begins to run higher and longer than it should. Chronically elevated cortisol tells your body to store fat, specifically visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat that accumulates around your organs and shows up as that stubborn weight around your middle that was not there in your 50s. Chronically elevated cortisol also suppresses the production of thyroid-stimulating hormone. And when your thyroid gets underperforming signals, your metabolism slows, sometimes dramatically, without showing up clearly on a standard thyroid panel, which is why your doctor may have run thyroid tests and told you everything looked normal. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that cortisol levels in postmenopausal women were measurably higher in the late afternoon and evening compared to premenopausal women of similar weight and health status. That evening cortisol elevation is one of the most under-recognized reasons women over 65 cannot sleep. Cortisol is supposed to be at its lowest at night, dropping to allow melatonin and your sleep hormones to take over. When it stays elevated, quietly and visibly, sleep becomes fragmented, light, and unrestorative. Comment below right now. If you're a woman over 65 and you're experiencing at least two of these three things, weight gain around the middle, sleep problems, or that persistent sense of feeling like yourself has faded, comment yes below. I want to understand how many of you this is affecting because this issue is far more widespread than most physicians acknowledge. Why your doctor keeps missing it. There are two reasons this hormonal picture is being missed in women over 65 at an alarming rate. The first is how standard hormone testing works. A routine blood panel checks estrogen, and if the number is low but within the expected postmenopausal range, it gets marked as normal and the conversation ends. What that panel does not assess is the functional relationship between estrogen, cortisol, and thyroid, how those systems are interacting in your specific body. Cortisol is rarely tested in routine senior care, and when thyroid is checked, the standard TSH number can appear within range even when the thyroid is functionally sluggish. The second reason is time. In a 15-minute appointment, the symptoms of this hormonal cascade, fatigue, weight gain, sleep disruption, mood changes, reduced motivation, are almost universally attributed to normal aging. You are told that these things happen after 65, that you should pace yourself, that perhaps you could try sleeping aids or eat a little less. Patricia was 67 years old when she came in having gained 22 pounds over 18 months without any meaningful change in her diet. She was sleeping no more than 4 to 5 fragmented hours a night and had recently stopped attending her weekly book club because, as she described it, She just didn't feel like herself enough to be around people. Her standard blood work came back with nothing flagged. Her previous physician had suggested antidepressants. When we did a comprehensive hormonal assessment, including a cortisol curve across the day, a full thyroid panel including free T3, and an evaluation of her progesterone levels, which also decline sharply after 65 and play a critical role in sleep, the picture became completely clear. Her late afternoon and evening cortisol was significantly elevated. Her free T3, the active form of thyroid hormone, was at the very bottom of the normal range, and her progesterone was essentially undetectable. 3 systems working against each other simultaneously. None of it visible on a standard blood draw. What the research actually says? Let me give you the scientific grounding for this because you deserve more than a story. You deserve data. A landmark study published in Menopause, the Journal of the North American Menopause Society, followed postmenopausal women across a 6-year period and found that women with higher chronic cortisol output gained significantly more visceral abdominal fat than those with lower cortisol independent of caloric intake. Meaning you can eat the same diet and still accumulate more abdominal fat if your cortisol is chronically high. This finding has been replicated multiple times. A 2022 review published in the journal Frontiers in Endocrinology specifically examined the thyroid-cortisol connection in postmenopausal women and confirmed that chronic cortisol elevation suppresses the conversion of T4 to T3, the active thyroid hormone, in peripheral tissues. This means that even if your thyroid gland is technically producing adequate hormone, elevated cortisol is preventing your body from converting it into the form your cells can actually use. Your metabolism slows not because your thyroid is failing, but because cortisol is blocking its effectiveness. This distinction is critical and almost never discussed. On the sleep side, research from Johns Hopkins Sleep Disorder Center found that postmenopausal women with elevated evening cortisol spent significantly less time in slow-wave deep sleep, the restorative stage that determines how recovered you feel, compared to women with lower evening cortisol. Crucially, these women did not feel sedated or obviously impaired. Many reported feeling reasonably alert. But their cognitive test scores and inflammatory markers told a different story. Chronically disrupted deep sleep drives systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation accelerates virtually every marker of biological aging. And then there is progesterone. This is the piece most often left out of the conversation entirely. Progesterone is not just a reproductive hormone. It has direct calming effects on your brain through its interaction with GABA receptors, the same pathway that sleep medications target. As progesterone declines sharply after menopause and continues falling after 65, many women lose a major natural source of nighttime calm. Research published in the journal Sleep Medicine Reviews confirmed that progesterone decline in postmenopausal women was significantly associated with increased sleep onset difficulty, nighttime waking, and reduced dream sleep. All things that millions of women are currently experiencing and being told are simply a feature of aging. What you can do right now. A practical action plan. Here is exactly what you should do with this information. I want to be specific because vague advice helps no one. Step 1. Request a comprehensive hormonal evaluation, not a standard panel. When you speak to your doctor, use these exact words. I would like a comprehensive hormonal evaluation, including a cortisol curve, free T3, free T4, TSH, and progesterone. A cortisol curve measures your cortisol at multiple points across the day, morning, midday, afternoon, and evening, rather than a single snapshot. That pattern is what tells the real story. A single cortisol draw means almost nothing. If your physician is not familiar with or resistant to this type of evaluation, ask for a referral to an endocrinologist or a menopause specialist. The Menopause Society maintains a directory of certified menopause practitioners at menopause.org, and your age and symptoms absolutely qualify you for this type of consultation. Step 2. Address cortisol directly through evidence-based lifestyle tools while you pursue testing. I want to give you things you can act on this week, not 6 months from now. Cortisol is highly responsive to 2 behavioral interventions that are consistently supported by research. The first is morning light exposure. Getting 10 to 15 minutes of outdoor light within the first 30 minutes of waking helps reset your cortisol awakening response, the healthy spike of cortisol that should peak in the morning and then steadily fall through the day. When this rhythm is disrupted, evening cortisol stays elevated. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Biological Rhythms found that consistent morning light exposure measurably improved cortisol rhythm regulation in postmenopausal women within 4 weeks. The second behavioral tool is what researchers call active recovery, specifically a 10 to 15-minute period of deliberate stillness after your most stressful point of the day. Not sleep? Not scrolling your phone? Sitting quietly, breathing slowly, eyes closed. Research from the University of California found that this type of brief afternoon recovery significantly reduced evening cortisol in postmenopausal women compared to those who remained mentally active through the afternoon. This is not meditation in any complicated sense. It is simply giving your nervous system a deliberate window to downshift. Step 3. Prioritize protein at your first meal of the day. This sounds almost too simple, but the hormonal mechanism is well established. Cortisol is highly sensitive to blood sugar fluctuations. When blood sugar drops, which it does faster in postmenopausal women due to reduced estrogen, cortisol surges to compensate. Starting your day with 25 to 30 grams of protein instead of carbohydrates significantly stabilizes blood sugar across the morning and blunts the cortisol spike that follows a glucose crash. A 2023 study published in Nutrients found that postmenopausal women who consumed high-protein breakfasts had measurably lower midday cortisol compared to those eating carbohydrate-dominant morning meals. Eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a quality protein shake are all appropriate starting points. Step 4. Ask specifically about bioidentical progesterone. If your comprehensive hormonal evaluation confirms low progesterone, there is a well-studied, FDA-approved option called micronized progesterone, sold under the brand name Prometrium, that is chemically identical to the progesterone your body once produced naturally. Unlike synthetic progestins used in older hormone replacement studies, micronized progesterone has a favorable safety profile in postmenopausal women and has been specifically shown in multiple trials to improve sleep quality by supporting GABA activity in the brain. The research supporting micronized progesterone for sleep and mood in postmenopausal women is solid enough that many menopause specialists consider it a first-line option. This is a conversation to have with your doctor armed with your actual hormone levels, not a decision to make independently. Step 5. Track your symptoms with specificity before your appointment. Vague reports of fatigue and poor sleep are easy to dismiss. Specific documented patterns are not. For the next 2 weeks, keep a simple daily log. Record your morning weight, your subjective energy level on a scale of 1 to 10, how many hours you slept and whether you woke during the night, and your stress or mood level in the afternoon. 2 weeks of specific data gives your physician something concrete and makes it significantly harder to attribute everything to aging without further investigation. A critical safety note. Everything I have discussed today is designed to give you information and questions to bring to your doctor, not permission to make independent changes to hormones or medications. Hormone therapy is not appropriate for every woman and carries considerations that depend on your personal health history, including any history of hormone-sensitive cancers, cardiovascular disease, or blood clotting conditions. These conversations must happen with a qualified physician who knows your complete medical picture. What I'm asking you to do is stop accepting the explanation that how you feel right now is simply what 65 looks like. For the vast majority of women experiencing this cluster of symptoms, there is a specific hormonal picture driving it. That picture can be identified, and in many cases, it can be meaningfully addressed. You have not disappeared. Your body has changed in ways that nobody explained to you, and you are now equipped with the right questions to start getting real answers. Comment below with one of these 3 responses so I can understand where this community is. Comment testing if you are going to ask your doctor for a comprehensive hormonal evaluation. Comment already know if you have already been through this process and want to share your experience. Or comment sharing if you know a woman over 65 who needs to see this video, because sending it to her could genuinely start a conversation that changes things. I read every comment, and your responses directly shape the topics I cover next. If this gave you something valuable today, please subscribe because next week I am covering the one breakfast food that most women over 60 believe is helping their health, but that recent research connects to accelerating hormonal imbalance in postmenopausal women. It is in most of your kitchens right now, and the finding genuinely surprised me when I worked through the data. I'm Dr. Steven. Take good care of yourself. You deserve a treatment plan built on current evidence, not assumptions about what getting older is supposed to feel like.